All right. So the NFL preseason is underway. We want to talk about it, obviously. I watched the first portion of the game on Friday because that's what you should watch in the preseason. And we've seen Drake May now for half a season and one preseason quarter plus under Mike Vrabel. We saw Travion Henderson, Will Campbell, some of the other rookies. Um, Couple of thoughts there, but obviously Henderson was the headliner with his kick return. Mike, Logan, did you guys have any kind of like initial takeaways from their preseason game against Washington?
Uh, no. Well, yeah, I guess I do. Uh,
This is good
like,
content. All right, folks, we'll be right back next week.
I mean, um, I think like they are in a position that's not entirely unique to the 2025 Patriots, but it's like, uh, you know, poor coaching last year. I mean, really, if you want to go back to like the end of the Belichick thing, it's been a bit of a dumpster fire down there. And so like I do think like operationally and day to day, and can you put forth a professional effort, um while that bar might be lower for teams that are actually good, where it's just like you guys are trying to get right. I think for the Patriots there's some value in beating the brains out of the Commanders and scoring 48 points and doing so in a way in which what they were I think they were flagged for four penalties. They two of them were accepted or whatever. Like they and it's a lot. I know it's guys, a lot of guys that aren't going to make the roster, but I think there's this kind of touches on some of the stuff that we've talked about before, Ben, with like the institutional stuff. Like, are you building a good culture? Are people doing their jobs, so to speak? Is it just buttoned up? And I think they checked the box in that regard. I think that's probably the most important thing. Number two would be Drake May and a new offense, but that kind of would give me a little bit of pause. I know he played very limited, amount of snaps. And actually, the more I think about it, I think he should be playing more. And I'm sure he will in the next couple of preseason games. But you're hearing reports. I think it was Greg Bedard at the Boston Sports Journal, or even people who are on location, which Greg is too. Like at practice, May hasn't looked especially competent, and it sounds like it's taking him some time to learn the offense, and that makes sense. It's a complicated offense. It's a new offense. That's a struggle for anyone. So like I think that part of it kind of lingers too. So like for me, the professionalism and just being buttoned up, that's a step in the right direction. That is a major check mark for Mike Vrabel. But I would have needed to see more. Whatever Trevion Henderson does doesn't overshadow what they've got going on with Drake May that could linger into the regular season.
Yeah, it is tough to draw any massive conclusions from especially the first preseason game, but I do agree that when you start beating a team by 30 points, like that's worth something. And the Commanders really didn't play any starters, so they were beating a B team, but if it was even if it was something like that, we still would have graded it the same way. So in the interest of fairness. So I guess my top takeaway would also be around May, and I guess the quarterback situation as a whole, because Josh Dobbs hasn't looked good either. So the thing that I guess would bode well for the Patriots is that there have at least been moments where the offense has been flashier since Josh McDaniels has gotten back from all the reports out of training camp. And this was a guy who dragged a rookie Mac Jones to the playoffs as an offensive coordinator. So in Drake May, I think most of us would agree, is far more talented, at least at this point, than Mac Jones was at that point or ever in his career. So the fact that it's taking Drake May a little bit to come along, I'm not entirely worried about that yet because it is a new scheme. It's a new offensive coordinator. There are a ton of new guys around him. So give it some more time. But I do agree that he should be playing most weeks. I think it was Justin Fields recently was like, no, like we need to be playing all the time. I This might be a old man take, I don't know, but I feel like starters played a lot more even like 10 or 15 years ago. I feel like they used to get like a half each game.
There were fewer games.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe that was it, but it does seem like, the attitude has shifted on preseason games. And I understand why. Like the schedule's gotten more truncated too. There are those Sunday, Thursday turnarounds. Like you have to be mindful of that. But you know, how much are you really getting out of your training camp practices unless it's a joint practice when you're just going against a team that also kind of knows your scheme because it's in-house. So I don't know. It's too early to make a real call on that, but should be playing more. The entire offensive starting group should be playing more. They also need to figure out what they have with the running backs because Henderson, Ramondre Stevenson, and Antonio Gibson. Gibson was better than Ramondre Stevenson last year. Stevenson already had a fumble. He's in a precarious spot, and I'd be interested to see what they do with Henderson as a kick returner because if they start needing to lean on him more as a running back, you would think they wouldn't subject themselves to that. Kind of risk too much.
Yeah.
Is he good enough to be a starter right away? Like, I don't even know.
Henderson?
Like, yeah, that feels like putting a lot on a guy.
So, yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, he feels like his value is optimized as, like, the change of pace guy.
But
Maybe
I also,
or
so, like,
high-end third down back.
Yeah, right, and a
so,
special
like,
teamer.
Like, I didn't want to poop all over the game because, like you said, like, you pretty convincingly, in multiple phases of the game, beat a team, even if it's a preseason game. Okay, that's great. I will start with Henderson since he's obviously the guy everybody was really excited about. Preseason kick return touchdowns mean next to nothing to me. I mean, you can run fast, but like preseason special teamers are guys. I mean, you want to talk about plumbers and electricians. So like I don't think that is sustainable. I also don't think it's sustainable just given like the changes in kick return rules this year. I think if he were to become a returning threat at all, teams are just going to kick it at the back of the end zone and and just say like, okay, spot the ball here. Well, he did look good. Like I did kind of want, I think 90 whatever yards of that was okay. It was fun to watch. The other thing as far as May, basically the things that I was hoping to see from May in this first look, I didn't see. Like the rushing touchdown, again, quarterback rushing touchdowns in a preseason game, they don't mean a whole lot to me. Like especially because I thought the whole thing was we were trying to teach him to not be running so much.
It's almost like a wasted rep.
Yeah, right. So that was one where I was like, okay, yeah, all right, he got a rushing touchdown against the Commanders, and with a half full Gillette Stadium. Okay, that's fine. And then the other one was his circus turnover, which I know like that's par for the course for him from this point, but like. Especially in a preseason game, like I get wanting to make a play, but like in that situation, like he's going down, he's trying to make. It's like, dude, we're even doing this right now, like in early August, like we're trying to be Cowboy Drake May. So I just thought like the things that supposedly were like good or whatever, it just wasn't necessarily what I was hoping to see in the first go round.
This is a guy who has been known for a long time as a mistake-prone player, and that's a big thing too, where there's enough tape on him now from last season where teams have had a full off season to prepare for him, especially teams within the division. So it'll be interesting to see whether, because I mean I can absolutely see a sophomore slump coming from him just because teams will be able to game plan better for him.
Well, not only that, I do think like this is a legitimate excuse for him, is like it's a new system too. Like you see this all across the league. Like if guys this is why it's it's perilous. Like it's a risky game to keep changing over. Look at what happened to Mac Jones. I mean, they did him no favors in terms of, although he figured out McDaniel's system pretty quickly, so there is a benchmark in that regard. The other thing is, and I this is not meant to lecture. I just think it's more of a helpful reminder. Like, we're 7 years, 5 years, I don't know, 4 years. Time flies, whatever. No, it is like, it's 2025. We're 6 years removed from Brady, which is wild to think about. That thing still lingers, and like Drake May could be one of the 14 best quarterbacks in the NFL, and that's good enough to contend for a Super Bowl. And so, like, I think to Logan's point, like, you do have to remember that this player has legitimate flaws, and it's going to take time. And progression is not linear, and like, it's going to look very bad at times. And like, I think that's important to remember that this is part of what that player's makeup is. Like, it can't be stressed enough. Like, as a Packers fan, I see this with a far more polished version in Jordan Love, who does the same things. He just does it a little bit better, and because he's been in the league for 5 years. So like, that can't be overstated enough. Like, I think this is not necessarily an overreaction to what I've seen on the field, either in practice or 1 or 2 preseason drives. It's just like, a lot of people want to put this team at 11-6 based solely on the head coach and the schedule. But like, those, until we see that Drake May can win games and avoid costly turnovers at the wrong time, it's a little bit foolhardy to be like, this team is definitely going to be a lot better than it was last year. I don't think they're going to go 4-13 again, but growing pain, I guess this is a long way of saying, like, don't forget that growing pains are still going to exist, especially with the guy of this caliber.
Drake May, like, understandably was graded on a curve last year by Patriots fans because everything had been so bad for so long that it is a different conversation when you're asking him to take a team to the playoffs versus please just make this team look competent. Yep. So that's where it's a big test year, which is a very obvious cliche, but
this is what it is. Yeah.
Teams can plan better for them, and you're supposed to be taking a jump as a team that's centered around you. They tried to invest more in the team around you, so there you go. Like, put up or shut up time in a way, not to rush a quarterback, but
yeah. So sorry, just to clarify before, when you were talking, I said there was more games. There's more regular season games now. Obviously.
Yeah.
That's
I know
what I
what you
meant.
mean.
Yeah.
I figured that's what you meant. Also, like, I think that is a big part of it too, right? Or they played more back then in the preseason, and I think that was more probably just generational than anything else. But it was also easier to just completely bag like the 4th game, right? It was a lot easier to ramp up to like that. How many times have you heard growing up like preseason game number 3 is the dress rehearsal? Like, so now that's not there. It's a little tougher to.
The names that they used to like pull out for the 4th preseason game, I forget, one year, it was while I was at Nesson, it had to have been like 2018 or 2019. They had some character named Scooby Wright on the roster for literally the 4th game of the preseason, and then he was gone. And I remember doing Scooby Wright stories just because it's like, you got to get this guy's name into a headline. So it really doesn't feel like it was that long ago that the attitude shifted. But Thursday night football also kind of impacts it. When you look at the totality of the schedule, it's longer. There are shorter windows even within that during the regular season to play. It's gotten messy. I get why they do it, but I think it's at the expense of a better product because you get less time to play
Gunnar
preseason
Olszewski's
in the
action.
But
yeah, exactly. I mean, Gunnar Olszewski became an All-Pro.
Sure.
That's actually an All-Pro.
Yeah, he actually was.
Oh my god.
Like Cordero Patterson, I think.
I'm actually looking at his Football Reference page. What a joke! You can't. All right. So if you're an All-Pro at 24 and you're out of the league 4 years later, you should have your All-Pro vacated. Like, that's you're not actually an All-Pro football player. I don't care what you did that season.
Right. I think that's one of those things. Also, if you're like the fact that like baseball gives out like the Gold Gloves for each outfield position now. It's like the Gold Glove left fielder. Like you're grading on a curve there.
Also, I'm looking at it. That happened in 2020, so it very much needs to be asterisk. There was nobody in these stands. People were wearing masks. Let's not get carried away.
Yeah, I want to be on that panel that's in charge of deciding which things to put asterisks on. Like not everything in 2020, but I do think that there's certain things in history that need asterisks.
There's been asterisk erasure, and I don't stand for that.
Yeah, like listen, we're going back to the 100-point Will Chamberlain game right away. Like that's getting the fattest asterisk. That's we're going to start at ground zero.
Just show me one clip.
Come on, there's a piece of paper. It has 100 written on it. You
Oh,
can't
there's
just
a
do that.
picture. Okay. So they did have the technology to chronicle.
It was a photograph. You were mentioning like Henderson, him pop, whether he can be a full time running back and all that kind of stuff. I do think that the number of games, which is obviously not a new thing this year, but it does kind of increase the need or the luxury, whatever it might be, of having three running backs that you do believe in. Because Saquon Barkley kind of was a unicorn last year in the amount of workload he was able to do in a 17-game season. But whether Travion Henderson can be a full-time back, I think might end up being a moot point at some point if either Gibson or Stevenson gets hurt or just gets worn down. I think you're right, Logan. I think that those guys, Stevenson and Gibson, are kind of, it's a big preseason, a big season for them to save their job, so to speak. But I also think that the more games we add to this season, the more kind of key each individual running back becomes in a strange sort of way, because like you go from needing just a couple backs to needing a flotilla, a caravan that can do different things for you, just get you all the way through 20 whatever games you're playing if you're playing through the playoffs.
Armada.
With the a cavalry. With the caveat of injuries, I have actually started to talk myself into this Patriots running back room quite a bit, because I think Mike, it was the one who mentioned that maybe Henderson becomes a change of pace back, and that's when he was at Ohio State, it was him and Quinshon Judkins, who was way more of a power back, and so they were nice sort of offsetting skill sets. And then when you consider Antonio Gibson, who is a great pass catching back, and Henderson can do that too, I think we'll see all three of them used in a variety of ways. Like I'm thinking about when this was a stupid way to do things, but the Arthur Smith Falcons, when they're using Bijan Robinson, Tyler Algier, and there's one other whose name is escaping me right now.
Cordell Patterson.
It was Cordero Patterson. Yeah. Jeez. How did he come up earlier? And then I lost it now. And it was a bizarre way of doing things because they had Bijan Robinson, but it was almost like a timeshare. Like every week he was getting asked, like, is there a primary back here? So especially because Ramondre Stevenson hasn't exactly earned trust over the last few years, especially with his ball security. I wouldn't be surprised if there might not be like a, clear-cut starter or a clear-cut bell cow, but actually a relatively fair timeshare.
One thing I will keep in mind though with Henderson is, and Ben, I think, was actually kind of circling this point without making it, and it just made me think of it, is there's a bit of a running back thing going on right now, and we saw it last year, with Saquon getting the money that he did, Josh Jacobs getting the money that he got, running backs getting drafted up high. Like I think if Henderson was as good as that, or could be looked upon to take on that sort of workload right away and be one of those guys, he would have been drafted higher than he was. So I think that's important to remember too. I think the more we kind of talk through this, I think that thing that you're talking about, Logan, is far more likely, especially as a start, and then they kind of go from there, which is a bit strange. It's like I think the Falcons comp is good because it's just, you look at these three guys that the Patriots have, and you're just like, it feels like one of these veterans could get cut. Like, if we have any sort of roster crunch somewhere else, like, why are we keeping Antonio Gibson? Or why are we keeping Ramondre Stevenson for him to fumble 12 times? Like, but the more you think about it, maybe it does kind of make sense, and it's a little misguided. Or, like, are they bringing back a fullback, too? Like, I don't even, there's
They came out with a fullback on Friday.
What?
They came out with a fullback on Friday.
Yeah, like, series. It's kind of a McDaniels thing, so, like, there is that, too. I say that kind of tongue-in-cheek, but
NFL trades are so weird too, where you would get like a 6th-round pick for Ramondre Stevenson, and when he can hold on to the ball, he's a very talented player. Like I like the idea of having him around, because if you get rid of him and you're running with Henderson and Gibson, that is a finesse running back room, and you're really like, what are your options on the goal line? Essentially, you're going to be putting Hunter Henry back there. So I really don't think, unless he's just awful or you get a good trade value for him, which you won't, I don't see why you would split off from Stevenson, because he offers you way more on your roster than he does as, you know, a cut candidate or someone like
I think
that.
it's possible somebody else comes loose though, and maybe they
Yeah,
prioritize
it would
that.
be Gibson.
What?
It would be Gibson. Like, he seems to be the one
Oh, I'm
that's.
saying like if somebody from some other team gets cut and they're
Oh,
like,
sure.
well, this guy hasn't fumbled in 6 years, and like that's
Yeah,
something that Vrabel is going to prioritize. You know what I mean? That does kind of feel like
yeah,
a tenet of a first year coach trying to get things in order. Is like we're not fumbling. So, but yeah, you're right. More likely than not, I think he stays.
And then just, I mean, we'd be remiss to not mention the offensive line. It's obviously a big thing. I, I will just mention it by admitting my own ignorance. You know, I even watched it. You know, I was watching Will Campbell and, you know, film breakdown of him. You know, supposedly what he did well, what he did poorly. And it's just I can't tell that stuff with offensive line, because I never know, like, okay, like, you know, what were the blocking scheme they were doing here, like where was the pressure coming from that was his assignment. So obviously like Drake May play in question, that one did not look good at all. But I don't know, any of you want to go into the film room and say, did you have any impressions of Will Campbell there in his first game?
No, with me, with Campbell and with the offensive line, that's another one where I kind of defer to the guys who are seeing it every day at practice, and like Campbell, mixed results or mixed reviews, I think so far. Um, I think it's. I read something today or yesterday that his football IQ is off the charts, but like until he's going up against Miles Garrett and T.J. Watt, like it's hard to say whether he can handle himself at a full time. I also heard somebody saying or read somewhere like the learning curve for a offensive rookie offensive tackle is pretty steep. So again, that's another thing kind of points to them having issues. Like you look at their schedule, I don't think they're gonna get tested a ton, but like week 3 against Pittsburgh, that could be a bit of a disaster because like Morgan Moses is another guy on the other side he's dependable, but like he hasn't practiced a ton this summer and he takes a ton of veteran days. Like he's not gonna get a lot of preseason time. Like kind of with the overall theme when you have a rookie offensive tackle on one side and you've got a veteran guy who takes more PTO days than Dakota, like it's going to be a little bit touch and go there, and it's going to be hard to build that chemistry until Halloween probably. So it's another kind of thing to keep in mind too.
I mean, Morgan Moses is a good player, but he's 34. I mean, even the most reliable Tyron Smith is an example, like
Yeah.
all pro level tackle forever. And then he just broke down and now he's done. So it happens, and it's, a grueling position. You certainly understand why. As it relates to Campbell, one thing I just did out of curiosity, because I constantly compared him to Joe Alt during the draft process, or investing similarly to investing in Joe Alt. It was an investment in Justin Herbert, so on and so forth. And I would just want to see what the narrative was after his preseason debut, and it was glowing. And it was the entire preseason. So apparently there wasn't as much of a learning curve for him. But, different examples. The one thing I will say is the
He was
Patriots do
also
have a
much
pretty
more
good.
of like yeah, go ahead. Yeah, sorry.
Yeah, he
I
was much
agree.
more of a
Yeah,
sure
the
thing.
the
Like,
draft is so bad this year that there was no like, that they could have gone a different direction with that pick, and nobody would have really
yeah,
said much about it.
I'll
yeah.
oh, sorry, Logan, go ahead, finish your point.
Okay, I was just gonna say the Patriots defensive front is good. He at least is getting some decent first team reps in practice when you go up against guys like Milton Williams and Christian Barmore. So that's at least worth something. But yeah, the learning curve is always steep. It's a huge amount of pressure to put on a guy. So you know that it's going to be a lot. You want him to show up well enough against the Commanders' second and third teamers. But again, first NFL game, new scheme for him too. So I think any missteps, any time to find his footing can be forgiven. I mean, if your entire season is hinging on a rookie left tackle, then you have other issues.
Yeah. So I saw a lot of I think his name Josh Simmons, the guy the Chiefs took. A lot of mentions of him over the weekend. Obviously, he's looked really good. But I think the Morgan Moses was kind of underscores the point of Simmons, I guess, was supposed to be the best, talented left tackle in the draft. But I thought that, especially when you're going in with Moses on your right side, Simmons, as talented as he might be coming off the knee injury, if you had kind of those two guys on either side of your line, kind of unsure of where they would be at, you could be in a tight spot. So that's just kind of like me knee-jerk reacting to a lot of Twitter activity I saw the last few days of people saying, oh, the Patriots could have had this guy and they took short arm Will Campbell instead. I felt like, you need the guy that you could pencil in for 17 games when you were considering that on the right side you have a guy who needs a lot of days off.
I can't believe they're about to cut Cole Strange. I mean, that's what a fall off for him. That's another thing that speaks to this entire issue. Like the fact that he's even on the roster bubble is insane. And, he was set up to fail from the beginning by getting taken in the first round, but they never knew what to do with him. He was a guard. And then they thought, well, maybe he'll be good enough that we can make him a tackle. That was never going to happen. Then they make him a center and he tries to learn it on the fly. He understandably stinks at it. And now it's like he's getting pushed back on the depth chart.
But I do think that one thing that maybe works in his favor reputationally is he might not be able to play. Okay, maybe he just can't play. But I think given the other people that they've let loose this offseason, he'd be in good company of guys who can play. But just Vrabel was like, no, this is from a previous regime that I don't have any plans for you. So I think there might also be a little bit of that working as well. It's like he might not necessarily be terrible. It's just that he's not good enough for Vrabel to want to keep him around when he's not one of his guys.
I think he might be terrible, but like
he might. Yeah.
He might be. Yeah.
Why did they cut David Andrews?
Didn't David Andrews retire?
Well, no, he retired after he was released. Yeah,
he was more or less forced to retire. He's like, I'm not gonna go learn.
Not gonna go. Play for the Raiders.
Not gonna go learn Buffalo, buddy. Like I'm done. I'm gonna go play golf.
They gave him a gold watch, and he was like, "Well, I guess I'm done now."
It would have been a lot for him, and like who knows, maybe he would have never gotten back. But geez, like if he's halfway healthy, like
I mean it. Again, that would speak to the Morgan Moses thing, though, where if you're relying on David Andrews, who's had a variety of health issues, including some serious ones, the last couple of years, like you're probably in a tough spot.
I guess my only point was like I'd take my chances with David Andrews right now with a shoulder held on by bubblegum and toothpicks than I would Cole Strange doing anything. So, because Cole Strange has the injury issues too. Like that's the other thing. He's not completely.
I'm sure David Andrews appreciates you volunteering him for that.
Well, he's said like he in hindsight it's not it probably wouldn't happen because I think somebody asked him like recently, it's like, would you want to come back? He's like, no, I'm playing golf, and I get that. But I do wonder if things would have been different if they hadn't cut him first and set off that chain of events as opposed to being like, we value you here, we think you're gonna be part of this core to start off this next chapter, and we want you around and like take your time with your shoulder or whatever. And then, but I think once they caught him, he's like, well, this actually is pretty nice. So,
to that point, like, why would anyone become a football player? Like, if you're at that point, like, if you're a baseball player or like a basketball player or even a hockey player, like, you get to the David Andrews stage in your career, like, you can become Carlos Beltran and go and like pinch hit for the Astros for a few years and just kind of like ride off like Carmelo Anthony, like come in and play 15 minutes and take 20 shots in like Oklahoma City when they were not, a championship team. But like football, like you don't get to do that. It's like David Andrews should get his kind of like, his swan, but no, it's like you have to go and bash your head in like Arizona in order to it's like, God, football. Why does anyone do this?
The allure of brothership is strong, man. People, those guys are different breeds.
I'm glad that like the top end offensive linemen have started getting paid because you hear all this talk for a while. I mean, I know we're just hinting at the tide turning here, but running backs should have their own union because of all the collusion going on against them. How about the offensive linemen who make league minimum, who are in the trenches playing 85% of the offensive snaps? Like, that blows me away.
On top of the wear and tear thing, like there is this. Again, we're gonna be at 7-7. Like the farther we go down this road, but like I think it's kind of an alarming, symptom or whatever when like these guys retire and within 6 months they weigh 130 pounds less than they did during
Yeah.
their playing days. It's like if it was that easy for you and that's the first thing that you did, like you probably shouldn't have been doing what you're doing the way you did it. So like that's an alarming thing too. That trend is not lost on me either, where it's like these guys are just putting weight on their body because they have to, and I get that. That's part of the position. But like when you have that much weight on your body and you're car crashing, that becomes even more,
Yes.
more pronounced.
It's so much attention, and rightfully so, has been spent on the head trauma, but
Yeah.
the joint trauma and like the
350 pounds on
gastrointestinal
those
trauma
joints?
that you
Yeah.
put yourself through to put on that kind of weight, like I think it's way like underemphasized when you look at what happens to these guys. I mean, like crap, like back and knees and digestive system, like all that kind of stuff is like that's real, man.
Well, and they're still remarkable athletes. So it's like someone who weighs 325 pounds shouldn't be able to run a 5-second 40-yard dash.
Right.
So when you consider that they're doing that to their body with all that weight
Yeah.
bearing down on it, it's just, it's no good.